This is Love, Sex, and Society with Bridget and Dawn. Please like, subscribe, and share.
What's good, everybody? Welcome back to Love, Sex, and Society with Bridget and Dawn. If you have not been tuning in over this past month, we are speaking on men's mental health because it's Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. And honestly, I would have missed it had it not been for my sister telling me, it's men's mental health. Like, we need to talk about it. So shame on me because it's actually like my month, but we also didn't really address fully like last month. And we there's something I want to ask, and I think I'll hold it for later on in the show about women's because we missed that. That somebody asked me. But let's talk about men's mental health. We are prone, as men, to hold everything in, bottle it up, and say we can handle it. But the truth of the matter is we always can't. So I'm going to let Bridge lead us off on that note. And then we're going to talk more about not holding things in later on.
Okay. So I wanna talk about like different ways that men struggle with their mental health. So I'm actually gonna bounce it back to you, Dawn. And then I'll speak on some of the things that I am aware of. Have you ever, if you care to share, have you ever struggled with your mental health? And if you have, what are some things that cause you to struggle with your mental health?
So I've struggled with my mental health multiple times throughout my life, honestly. And when I was younger, I didn't understand or appreciate the power of therapy. So when my brother got killed, that was like a huge blow to me. I was 15. I was just becoming a young man, really. And because my dad was the type of man where you deal with it, you handle it, you move on. That was his answer. Like, okay, your brother died, you still here, deal with it and move on. Right. It was my mom that said, maybe you need some type of counseling and some type of therapy, but I didn't understand what therapy was back then. At 15, I was just like, I'm sitting, I'm talking to this dude and he's not saying anything back to me. And I'm like, I can talk to myself at home. So that was like the first time that I really struggled with my mental health. Losing somebody that close to me, not only my guide, but my push.
Yeah.
Like he was really, even though my father was the father figure, my brother was my push. You know what I'm saying? So like he would tell me I was going to fail and I would always have to prove him wrong. But when you no longer have that person to prove wrong, what do? You fail. So that was the first time. The second time was just
tell the second time. Can you like explain, not to cut you off, but explain ways of like why it was so hard? I mean, you explained why it was hard, but did it cause you to do anything, outside of your character when he passed away?
So it caused me to totally spiral out of control. Even though it wasn't a conscious thought, subconsciously, I felt like he gone, I got to join him. So I was reckless. Now, prior to my brother being killed, I was already in the streets. But once he got killed, like I became reckless in the streets. See, but prior to that, I was in the streets, but I was cautious. Once he got killed, I threw caution to the wind, and I was in the streets wholeheartedly. Like I was doing stupid stuff, like going up to Boston and setting up shop selling drugs, knowing they don't like us because we're from New York,
Mm-hmm.
first and foremost. But I didn't care. It was like either I'm gonna succeed or you're gonna kill me, and that's it.
Yeah.
Um, so and that was from age 15 to age 20 or age 19, that I was on this trajectory of either you're gonna kill me or you're gonna let me succeed.
Yeah.
And of course, everybody knows the streets. Everybody knows the streets is, yeah, I'm gonna take you out first. But I didn't care. The
Yeah.
person who had my back, always had my push, the person that I was cautious for wasn't my parents, it was my brother.
Mm-hmm.
And when that caution is gone, now your behavior is whatever. And not to mention, and I know this may sound really weird to some of the people who might watch the show. So when my brother died, my parents bought, they got to buy his burial site. So they were able to buy a burial site for me and my brother. So my parents were already planning for my demise, and I was still living.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like they were literally, so me and my brother's plot was supposed to be one on top of the other.
Mm-hmm.
And when my mother told me that, first of all, I'm not sure why she told me that because I'm still living. Like,
Right.
tell me you already got my gravesite purchased. So whenever you're ready to jump in it, go ahead and do that.
Yeah.
Um, and that was a huge struggle. And even in therapy, I couldn't explain how I felt knowing that my plan for death was already there.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's one thing to buy somebody a life insurance policy,
Yeah.
hope for the best and plan for the worst. But it's different when you buy their burial plot.
Yeah.
When you
Um,
say, I know you're gonna be there, I'm gonna go ahead and get it for you in advance.
yeah. I can understand how you feel. Especially you being still a child, I do feel, not to justify it, I do feel like it was more common back then for people to buy plots because they
Hmm.
sold them, they would give people deals on them. So I feel like people from that generation, they would buy husband and wives plots, and this is just to take the burden off the family. But honestly, I can't imagine how it would make you feel as a child to, because that's almost, to you, don't, the way you're taking it is like, oh, so y'all are like expecting me to pass away before y'all, or even
Right.
just young, because my brother passed away, so I can understand how that could affect you, because I feel like children, especially when it comes to death, is very scary to children.
Hmm.
Some children literally live in fear because, and it's even some adults that deal with that. Just to think about death.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So that's definitely one of the things I had on here. I definitely feel that men do take like losses. I think everyone takes handles grief differently, but I think the thing with men is that women are like known to be more emotional, and I've seen that too even when I went to funerals, and you could tell like some men, it will really affect them, and it's like they might cry, but it's kind of like, okay, after that, sometimes people will check on the mothers, the women, the sisters, and they not really checking on the brother or the men of the family, like, hey, are you good? Because it's still a grieving process after the fact. Not only did you lose that person in that moment, but you know, it could be a lifelong thing that you're dealing with, you know. And sometimes I do feel like society is not there as much for men or young boys when they face losses in their life, you know. Just because it's looked at, you know, like men and boys are supposed to be the strong ones, you know, and it's like some reason they act like y'all aren't human and y'all don't feel the same and have the same pain and emotions that women have, you know, when they're grieving.
Like I remember being at my brother's funeral, and my dad. I'm standing at the casket. I'm looking at my brother, and my dad put his arm around me. And the first thing he said to me wasn't, "How you feeling? We gonna get through this together." It was, "Man up. You got your mother and your two sisters. You got to be strong for."
Mm-mm.
And I'm sitting there and I'm going, "But who's gonna be strong for me?"
Right,
You know what I'm saying? Like who's gonna help me build back from this?
right.
Um, and but it was at that moment that I understood my assignment.
Mm-hmm.
My assignment was not me anymore. My brother was gone. So it was just me and my dad. And my assignment was to make sure his assignment was to make sure my mom was good, but my assignment was to make sure my sisters were good.
Yeah.
And you know, ironically, and I know that guys, I'm gonna tell you this. Like, if you got a woman in your life, whether it be a female friend, your actual lady, whatever it is, you know what I'm saying? Understand that when you're sitting there trying to be strong, they want you to lean on their shoulder in your weak moments. They don't want you to, they want you to be strong for them, like to protect them, but they want to see that vulnerability. You know what I'm saying? Like they want to see a guy say, "You know what, today I don't have it." You know what I'm saying? Today I just need to break down. I need somebody to talk to. Your lady, whether it be your female best friend or your forever partner, she needs to know the same way that she needs to know that you got her back. She needs to know that you respect her enough and trust her enough to let her have your back in those weak moments.
Yeah.
And at that time, I didn't have anybody like that. So I'm thinking I got to be strong for my sisters. I got a younger sister and an older sister. I'm like, I got to be strong for them. But the whole time, they're sitting there talking together like, how can we be strong for Don?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? How can we help him through this? So like that was major, especially when my older sister finally broke down and shit. Like she told me, you know, when I finally decided to leave New York and move away on my own. And she was like, "You're doing the right thing, but I got you." Like, because I wanted to change my whole image. Like I was literally a thug in the street, Timberlands, boots, all Timberlands and jeans and fatigue. That was me. But I wanted to move away from New York and change who I was. I wanted to leave it behind.
Mm-hmm.
And my older sister said, "You know what? As soon as you get down there, I'm going to send you a care package and I'm going to help you build the image that you want to be." Now, the whole time I'm thinking I got to be there for them. But when her and my little sister got together and they sent me the care package, and now I'm wearing button-down shirts and jeans and shoes instead of Timberland boots, like I'm like, yo, I got them, but they got me as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I know a lot of guys, it's hard. It's hard for us. And I need you to give me some grace on what I'm getting ready to say. Yes, we look at women as sexual beings. Yes, we when we find a woman who's got our back, we immediately think we're supposed to be together. That's not always the case, though, y'all. Like sometimes that woman that's got your back is just there to have your back. Her forever person is out there. Your forever person is out there. But y'all friendship is you listening to her when she needs to vent and vice versa. That doesn't mean I need to be together. That just means I need to be friends. And we've talked about like the way that guys will try to turn a friend zone into a relationship.
Yeah.
And you was like, nah, that don't happen. But I get it now.
That's the exact, you know what I'm saying? Like any of my male friendships, that's what it's really based on, you know, like being like support systems for each other, you know. Like one of my male friends, which I consider him a brother, you know, I checked in on him today. I'm like, yo, bro, like, how you feeling? And he like, not good, you know. And you could tell he had a lot on him. And as he was telling me stuff, he like, sis, I'm really not trying to dump on you. And I'm like, you don't need to apologize, you know, because in reality, like when I go through things, it's the same thing, you know. So and like I know a lot of men don't really feel comfortable opening up to people, let alone to women, you know. So I feel like that is something that I did want to talk about, is that like, especially for men, whoever you feel safe to talk to about what you're going through internally, I feel like just go to those people. It's going to be some people that I feel like you might not trust because, you know, some people have said before, like, you know, they've had things thrown in their face and stuff like that. But I feel like whoever you feel is safe for you, you know. So if you feel like you can't talk to your homeboys, like you said, Don, I feel like, you know, if you have a female friend that you can talk to, maybe a family member, just whoever you feel safe to being your full authentic self and expressing like when you're not okay, you know, because I feel like everybody needs somebody, and you know, I feel like with like my male friendships, I feel like they be there for me the times that like I'm going through stuff and they give me advice and stuff, and I want to be that for them in return, you know, just because, you know, I love people, and I just personally don't feel like it's fair that men be feeling like they have to like suffer in silence, you know. I think one thing though, I feel like some men, that is one thing with men sometimes, is that when they are going through things mentally, sometimes they do shut people out and they go into isolation, which is not necessarily a good thing, because the more that you're isolated, the more that you get in your head, you know. And even what you said, like when you experienced the loss of your brother, you know, when you said you just became like reckless in the streets, you know, that's another thing too, that I feel like sometimes when your mental health or you're grieving someone, you start doing very risky behavior where it's almost like, I don't want to necessarily say like suicide, but it's almost on that line of, I wouldn't care if I'm here today or tomorrow because I lost someone, or my life is so bad, I'm going through all this stuff in my life that it really don't matter if something happens. So I'm gonna just, you know, do all this risky behavior regardless, you know. What's the other things that you said you struggle with?
So I'm gonna touch back on what you just said though before we move forward.
Okay.
So it is a form of suicide by, and I was trying to sit here and think of the word. There's a word, when you like what do you call it when a woman has a baby for somebody else? So it's called a
what is it?
Nisha, you watching? I need you right now. When
talking about this the other day, surrogate.
Yeah, so it's suicide by surrogate.
Okay.
So you don't want to directly commit suicide. You're not going to put the gun in your mouth. You're not going to pull a trigger, but you're looking for other people to do it for you.
Right.
So you're not saying, okay, I want to commit suicide, but if I get murdered, I'm cool.
Right.
Um, so I remember when the guy that killed my brother, and this is honestly, y'all, this is my therapy session. So join me, hang out.
Okay.
Hopefully, y'all can feel me where I'm at. But I remember when the guy that killed my brother came home. He only did 4 years for killing my
Mm.
brother. He came home, and the situation was I was a dude that was in the streets. My brother wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody in the streets knew who I was. They didn't know that was my brother. My brother was a worker bee. My brother was a hard worker from the time he was 16. I was a street dude from the time I was 12. So this dude comes home. He knows who I am. I'm actually DJing a hooky party.
Mm-hmm.
He walks in like he's supposed to get this grand everybody, hey, he back home. And he looked at me and I'm looking at him, but there is anger in my eyes
Mm-hmm.
because the only thing I can think of is taking him out.
Right.
And he's looking at me like, yo, what's good? Like, we good? And I'm just looking. I can't even say words. And one of my good friends came and handed me a gun.
Mm.
And he said, go ahead and take care of your business. That's all I needed.
Mm-hmm.
And another really good friend of mine, a good, wholesome friend who didn't get into trouble, whose mother kept him out of trouble, he came and he ran to me and he grabbed it. He took it out of my hand and he said, there's too many people and I don't want to see you spend the rest of your life in jail.
Right.
And he took it from me. And it was at that moment that I was like, what are you going to do now? Like, do you want to throw your life away because you still got your sisters that your father told you got to look out for?
Right.
So even at that moment, in my worst moment, I still had to think about it's not about me, it's about them. It's about my sisters. Do I want them to have to visit my jail cell for the rest of my life? Like even at that moment when revenge was in my eyes and in my heart and in my soul, that I had to stop and put me aside and say, it's not about you, it's about them.
Yeah.
So like that was a huge moment in my life. I got some friends that tell me that I still need counseling because of other things that I went through or other things that I watched growing up. But I feel like I've pushed so many things internally and to the side that I don't feel like I need therapy for it anymore. But I still have a short fuse. So I still go from 0 to 100 if you push the right buttons.
Right. Um,
Um,
I would
but go
definitely
ahead.
I would definitely say, I feel like you made a very logical decision to not seek revenge because honestly, that would have just put your family at another loss. They would have
Right.
lost another brother, another son in a different way. I'm sorry for your loss when it comes to your brother. Because honestly, I don't know. That's not fair. And to even the fact that he only got 4 years. And even when you said that was your assignment to be strong for your sisters, but in reality, that shouldn't have been your assignment. Like yeah, as a family, y'all be there for each other. But that to me, that's another expectation put on men, young black men, to carry on a load that's bigger than yourself, and in that moment you should have just been able to grieve the fact that you lost your brother instead of trying to be strong for someone else. And the biggest thing with, I feel like, men's mental health is that it's okay to not always be strong. You know,
Yeah.
at times when it's time to cry, because I personally feel like when you hold in though that anger and that resentment and that like wanting revenge, like you said, at times, you know, it can, you know, you can be short tempered and stuff like that. But I feel like when you hold those emotions and feelings in because you're worried about being strong or what it looked like to everybody else around you, you know, you're not truly healing from it, and it can be resurfaced at any moment. You know, all of that anger that you holding on inside. Um. So, did you want to talk about the other thing?
So I want to talk about relationships.
Okay.
Um, I know we talk about relationships a lot on the show, but I think a lot of times I come at guys like, man up, be strong. Um, it is what it is. But I allowed a relationship to break me down so bad because everybody tells you you got to be the man. You got to be strong for your relationship. You got to build your relationship up. I was always taught if your relationship fails, it's your fault.
Mm-hmm.
Even if the woman cheats on you, it's your fault. Um, and it's crazy how even as I got older in age, it took me literally what 5, 6 years ago that I realized it's not my fault. But I was always taught that if your relationship is failing, it's something that you're not doing as a man that's allowing it to fail. But that's not the case, y'all. That's really not the case. Like sometimes a woman just has to be free. I know it sounds crazy to y'all, but a woman goes through the same cycles as a man. They just go through it sooner. So when a woman gets 40, she's sitting there rethinking the last 40 years of her life. In her mind, that's her midlife. For a man, 50 is his midlife. And he's sitting there rethinking the last 50 years. But if a woman wants to be free, let her be free. Like let her do what she got to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I did go to counseling because of the way I handle relationships. I always looked at relationships as be a provider. That means financially, be a provider. If you got to empty your pockets out, that's fine. As long as she's happy, you're happy. And when I finally went through therapy behind all of this, I realized, shout out to Miss Kim, psychologist, Asian lady, but she was honest. She told me whenever I would use the word try, oh, I'm going to try to do this, I'm going to try to do that. She'd be like, either do it or don't. But if you try, you're setting yourself up for failure. And it took this lady who I didn't know sitting in therapy with to finally let me know if I try and I fail, it's okay. But do it. At least check the box. I, I did it. I failed. Move on.
Mm-hmm.
Your woman does not want you to be Superman. I know we think they do. What they don't want you to be is an apprehensive failure. So if they don't want you to sit there and go, I want to do this, but I won't do it because I'm scared to fail. They don't want to hear that shit. Like, that's the weakness in you. The weakness in you isn't your woman saying, yo, you tried it, you failed, move on. Let's do something else. The weakness is I'm scared to do it because I don't want to fail.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And and women don't have that same mentality. Women, at least most of the women I know, they're like, look, I'm gonna go ahead and do it, and I'm gonna put 1,000% into it. If I fail, at least I know I failed at 1,000% instead of failing at 0%.
Right.
And we have to take on that same mentality of take the risk, do it. If
Yeah.
you fail, so what? You failed. You would have failed if you didn't try it anyway.
Yeah.
So, like that was my second biggest aha. Um, but like when I talk to some of my male friends, and some of them will, will say things like, yo, we grew up the same. And I'm like, nah, we didn't. I'm saying we didn't grow up the same.
Mm-hmm.
You grew up in a two-family stable household. You know what I'm saying? You telling me how your mom was a teacher and your father was XYZ and dinner was on the table every night. I'm telling you how I didn't know whether dinner was going to be on the table at night at all.
Yeah.
In a two-family household. Because
Yeah.
my sneakers wasn't important. My father putting food on the table and keeping a roof over our head was the only thing that was important. So
Yeah.
I had to get my way out the mud.
Yeah.
So like guys, whatever we are going through, take a moment, sit back, self-reflect on what part you play in it, but don't be scared to lay on somebody's shoulder and say, hey, I just need to talk.
Yeah. Um, I don't think, like, I feel like talking about relationships, I think especially with men, I feel like it's so many things that uh play into, men's mental health. I do believe that relationships is a huge one. Um, just because, again, a lot of men were taught as young boys to suppress their emotions. So
Mm-hmm.
when a relationship ends, and especially if it's not by the man, men sometimes don't know how to handle it. um so you have men that go into, not to say that women don't go through it, but we speaking on men. Um men go into major depression. Um a lot of men will even make threats to kill themselves. You have a lot of men that end up killing women and then killing themselves, like murder suicide. So that's why I feel like it is a very important thing to talk about, because some men cannot handle the loss of when a relationship is over. And if it's to the point where, oh, I'm gonna go kill her, I'm gonna go kill her new partner, and then I'm gonna kill myself because of what I done. You even have some people who has went as far as killing children to get back at the
Mm-hmm.
person that they're grieving from the loss of the relationship. And this is real life stuff. So I feel like when it comes to a loss of a relationship, if a man is having a hard time with that, um he definitely needs support. But in which I want to talk about all of the ways that men struggle with their mental health, and towards the end, I want to talk about what we can do, to either prevent or help men when they are going through certain situations. But to me, I feel like relationships is a big one. That especially when a relationship is over, it plays a big part in men's mental health, declining. Also, just like you said, with the expectation of being the provider, that puts, and it's almost like, again, like men aren't human sometimes. Like they're not struggling, and you have some men that they feel in their mind like, well, I have to be the provider, so even when I don't have it, I have to act like I have it. And so you got some men that will even go into debt trying to prove to all the women around them, and it could be more than just a partner. It can feel like I have to take on a responsibility of still caring for my mother because she's older now, you know, and
Yeah.
my mom is struggling to pay her bills. But even though I got a household over here, I still gotta help my mom, you know, or my sisters are struggling. My sister ain't got no man, so when my sister, you know, need a new tire or something, I gotta show up there, you know. So it's like some men be feeling like they have to take on this huge financial responsibility, not only for themselves and their own personal relationships, but for their family, you know, outside of that. And like I said, just simply feeling like ashamed if they can't be the provider, if they don't have it, and you know, putting yourself in debt is another burden that will make you go into depression, you know, because I'm expected to be the provider, I'm expected to handle everything. Now I got myself in this hole, and now I have to, you know, deal with this reality of not only do I not have it, but now I'm in the negative, you know. And it's stuff that comes with, you know, debt too. And that don't have to just be in the relationship, but just in general. This is also something that men um that can make them struggle with their mental health is, you know, financially, if they're not where they want to be, or if um their parents or somebody or their partner put an expectation of them to be in a certain career or make a certain amount of money, and they're not there right then, you know. So I feel like financial, you know, financial expectations. Um I feel like I have some other things I want to of course, like okay, so this is another thing too. I feel like with young boys, because I did read today, I think it said like Black men's mental health has increased 50, or their suicide rates increased like 56% or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I do, even though we're talking about all men, I do want to talk about areas where Black men, especially with the suicide rate being so high right now. I want to talk about things that Black men and young Black men might face. One is like pressure of their environment. So just like you said, Dawn, like when you was a teenager, you was in the streets, you know. And sometimes I feel like when you're a young boy, you're still trying to figure out who you are. You might not have an identity, right? And so you're around your other friends, and your friends might be like, "Oh, let's go in here and let's go steal some clothes out of here." And then if you don't follow suit, you know, they call you names and stuff, you know. So you feel pressure when it comes to, you know, committing crimes and maybe even gangs. I've even seen that too. I've seen people get bullied into joining gangs, you know, where they
Yeah.
didn't want to join the gang, but they got bullied into to doing it, you know. um what else did I have? I'm sorry, let me see.
So I
uh,
remember a time when, so when boosting was big, when I was
mhm,
coming up, boosting was huge. Um, but I've never been a petty criminal kind of dude.
mhm,
And I had a group of friends around me, like, you know, my close knit dudes. And they'd be like, oh, there was a store in New York called Century 21. And they
mhm,
sold like all of the polo and all of that. And they were like, yo, you know, let's go to Century 21 and you know, boost some clothes or whatever. And I was like, you know, if I'm gonna get caught for something, it's not gonna be for stealing clothes. So what I would do is I would get out there and hustle so I could take us all shopping.
okay,
So instead of us stealing from the store, I would rather put myself on the line hustling so we can all go shopping. Let's all go and buy some clothes. You know what I'm saying? Let's
yeah,
walk out of there with shopping bags as opposed to running out the store because we stole something.
yeah,
Um, but that was just my mentality of, if I'm gonna get caught for something, if I have to call my parents and tell them I gotta do time, it's
mhm,
not gonna be for something so stupid as I stole some jeans and I got caught for it.
right,
Um, And then like later on in life, when I was no longer hustling and I was trying to turn my life around, I had a child on the way. And I was like, I don't want my child to visit my tombstone or my jail cell.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm working 9 to 5. And when I tell you the amount of stress that was on me that really wasn't there, all I had to do was take care of me. My daughter wasn't born yet. All I had to do was support myself. But in my mind, I walked away from making $2,000 or $3,000 a week to I'm not making $2,000 a month now.
Yeah.
And in my mind, even though I was doing better for myself, I was failing.
Yeah.
Um, and it's a weird situation when you are beating yourself up worse than society's beating you up. By society standards, I was doing right. I had a job. I had 2 jobs. By society standard, I was doing exactly what I was supposed to do. But in my mind, I was failing. I had 2 jobs and I still wasn't making what I was making hustling week by week. So, like, we put pressure on ourselves that don't belong, first of all. We apply so much pressure to ourselves that we're succeeding and we're telling ourselves that we're failing. Just like you said, like guys will sit there and put themselves in debt to impress women. You know, guys will go out there and spend money that they don't have to impress women. But what I found out later on in life is the right woman don't care about that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like the right woman, when you get a good woman, she's not thinking you need to put yourself in debt, because if you put yourself in debt, in her mind, you're putting us in debt. Even if y'all not living together, you know what I'm saying? Like y'all just boyfriend, girlfriend, y'all doing the boyfriend, girlfriend thing. In her mind, is your debt's my debt.
Yeah.
So it like I look at guys now and I'm like, yo, if you can do it, do it. But if you can't, don't put yourself into debt, because that's a different kind of depression.
Yeah. Um, I feel like with young boys, I feel like they are pressured when it comes to, like I've seen young guys like get pressured into like selling drugs with their friends. I've seen young guys get pressured into dropping out of school. Um, just because their friends did it, not necessarily because they couldn't apply themselves in school. Um, drinking alcohol at young ages, using drugs. Oh, just try this, smoke this weed, pop this pill. Off of like we all do it. It's cool. And I feel like things like that, right? And especially when you're young, you're feeling pressure because my friends do it. My friends said it's cool to do it, but it could turn into a lifelong habit that a young boy turns into a man, and it's like he struggles with that.
Mhm.
You got, and I'm gonna say it, like like even some like dudes I went to school with, right? It's like they might got into like, oh, let's pop a pill, and it's like as grown men, they're struggling like with those same habits, and it turned into something like, oh, we just gonna do it because it's fun, and you're like fully addicted now. And that's something that what we talked about when we had Johnny Pierce on the show about how substances can affect people's mental health. So I think
Mhm.
like even things like that, hey, these young boys can be pressured to doing this because it's cool, but it can turn into years of an addiction that affects how your life turns out. And then I feel like you have those same very men struggle with their mental health because they're not where they want to be at in life, or because they're trying to overcome this addiction, and they can't take a hold to it, you know, they can't get a handle on it or whatever. And that there it's affecting their mental health because it's now taking over their life, you know, and then looking back, you know, having regrets. But again, like with addiction, it's not all addiction is just so easy as I'm just gonna stop, you know, because some things that people are addicted to, your body is now relying on to function, you know. So I feel like that is one thing with young boys. And then I also want to talk about, the other thing with young boys is I feel like a lot of, and especially, I don't want to say especially in the Black community, but I feel like in the Black community though, this is where I feel like some of us do struggle, not all. But I don't feel like young boys are really prepared for life outside of school. I don't feel like a lot of young men are sit down and let me get you a savings account. Let me teach you how to save. You know, let me show you what budgeting is. Um, so I don't feel like they're taught financially, but also sometimes I don't feel like they're not always the case. It's not conversations based on a young man's future outside of, oh, you're going to be a football player, you're going to be a basketball player, because we already know, especially in the Black community, that's pushed on young boys. Like, okay, you good at being an athlete, you know, and like we talked about before, no one really prepares them for if that does not work out, you know. I don't feel like it should. I don't feel like it should be like this is it. You know, I don't feel like no one should put that pressure. I don't think no one should put pressure on a child as a parent to say you need to be this, you need to be that. I feel like you should prepare young boys and give them ideas of things, and that should be discussed in as early as middle school, especially going into high school, of like, okay, what are you thinking as far as careers, you know, and explain it to them, what comes with those careers, the good and the bad, you know. Anything outside of being an athlete, because again, like I said, if a young boy's in sports and then his mother, whoever, made him think that, okay, the only desire I ever had was to be a football player, a basketball player, and you don't live out those dreams. Now, like I talked about before, you become a grown man that lives with all this resentment and just keep talking about how you were supposed to be a football player or a basketball player, you know. And again, it's with identity. It's like you're more than just being talented at a sport, you know. And I feel like even the ones who are talented with the sports, and if you make it into the league, you're not always gonna be a football player. You're not always gonna be a basketball player. So you have to still help young men prepare for their future outside of just sports, you know. And I think that's why some Black men, it's like they graduate high school and some of them like, well, what do you want to do? I don't know. You know, and like back in the day, people used to be like, you're going to college or you going to the military. It was one or the other.
Right.
Which I don't agree with that neither. You know, I feel like it's so many other options. It's trade schools and stuff like that. But it's still not sitting down with them and showing them what's possible for them. Like outside of our norms, especially as like black men, like, oh, you don't have to work in a warehouse or a factory or whatever it is, you know, but just you know, preparing them for life, because I feel like if not, they turn 18, 19, 20, they smoking weed, they sitting around, they're not, you know, they don't know what to do, and then it's like they blink and they're almost 30, and that is something that they deal with mentally, is like, I'm not living up to any potential, you know, that I had. You know, I still don't know what I want to be. And when people struggle with what their purpose is, that can cause them to go into a deep depression, you know. So I definitely feel like preparing young men for their future. And one more other thing that I want to talk about before we go into any other thing that we talk about, I just want to like cover all like the younger men. But the other thing is something that I've personally heard before. I've heard a man say before, um, that when my son turns 18, I'm gonna kick him out, but my daughter's, and I personally don't agree with that. You know, I feel like that's another thing, because if you always make young men from the time they're 18, oh, you a man, you got to get out, you can't be up in my house. And I get it, because you don't ever want no one to feel comfortable to where they don't feel like they have to do anything, you know, and they just, you know, but at the same time, I don't feel like it should ever be to the point where they don't have nowhere to go back to when times get hard, you know. And I don't care what age it is. I feel like, to me, a good parent would never shut their child out. If you truly love and care about your kids, you want the best for them. And I feel like some people, well, especially when they kick their sons out at 18, I feel like what they're doing is they're putting their sons into like financial, you know, debt. And it's like, in reality, like, oh, he got to get out, but you're actually setting him back instead of setting him up, you know.
Yeah.
And so I'm not saying, like I said, I'm not saying like a young man should, once he turn 18, sit around and just smoke weed and not do nothing. But as a parent, it's your job to talk to them about their future ahead of time, so that there is an active plan once they graduate high school, and also be that support to them when they are going through hard times. And if you really are trying to set your child up for a successful life, you wouldn't allow them to go out into the world not financially ready, not financially prepared, not with any idea. You wouldn't, because that ultimately is going to set them back in so many ways, and they're going to struggle with their mental health and forever be, you know, figuring out, how am I going to get out of this? How, you know, they're not going to be able to, like, a lot of people, it's hard once they get out, when they trying to get out of something, you know, rather than be set up and really prepared for it. But yeah,
Like
Don, go ahead,
I
Don.
watched so and in hindsight, I wish I could have done some things different by my sons. Now, luckily, my son's mom was good to them. She gave them, you know, they always knew you got to graduate high school. That hands down, that's it. My oldest son, he knew when he graduated high school, he was going to college. Like he already knew that. It was already set in his head. We already had those conversations. My younger son, when he graduated high school, initially he said, I don't want to go to college. And I really had to sit back and say, okay, he doesn't want to go to college. You can push him into something he doesn't want to do, or you can give him some other options out there. So, you know, I was talking to him. I was like, you know, okay, cool. You don't want to go to college. That's the vision I had for you, but that's my vision.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to go to college. Okay, what are you going to do? You know what I'm saying? Like, I gave him some avenues. Think, you know, like you like to play video games. You can be a video game developer. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to go to college a day in your life to do that.
Right.
But the fact that I didn't apply that pressure to him and I let him sit back and kind of think things through for himself. We went to go visit my oldest son. He plays in a band. He plays in an HBCU band. And me and my youngest son, we out there, we watching him. But everybody at the school knew my youngest son. They talking to him like he go to the school.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yo, the band director said, yo, all you got to do is say the word and I'll give you a scholarship.
Mm.
And I'm looking at him like, yo, you know everybody. He's walking with the band and he is air playing the tunes. And I'm like, so you like what they're doing? Everybody knows you. So you know once you get there, you good. What's stopping you? And he said, I don't know. I don't know if I want to, I don't know if I want to go to college. And I said, all right, cool. Like I said my piece, cool. A year later, he calls me up. I think he might have been calling me for some money, but he led with, I just signed up for school. The band director's giving me a scholarship. I start in the fall.
Okay.
And at that point, honestly, he could have asked me for anything. He only asked for $50. And I was like, cool, listen, your bank account right now. But the fact that he was able to make his own decision, in his mind, I created my own path. So, I'm sitting there and I'm like, yo, good. If you need me, I'm here, whatever you need. And I called my oldest son and I'm like, yo, how did you get him to go to, what I'm saying? Like, how did you steer him? Because he idolizes his older brother. So I'm like, how did you steer him in that direction? And he's like, I ain't had nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
He was like, the last time you came out here and y'all talked, something in that conversation clicked. Because when the next time he came around the band, he told the band director he wanted to go to school. So you don't always have to push your kids into something that they don't want to do. Give them some avenues, though. We have a lot of young men who don't realize that there are successful avenues out there for them that doesn't require college.
Yeah.
It doesn't require them to be a have their bachelor's degree and their master's degree and their PhD. Yeah, that's for some people, but it's not for everybody. I know dudes that make money cutting hair. They went and they got their barber's license and they are cutting hair and they make good money. So just because your child doesn't want to go to college, because your son doesn't want to go to college, don't immediately tell them if you don't go to college or you don't go to military, you're going to fail. No,
Right.
there's avenues for them.
Right.
The average electrician makes well over $30 an hour right now.
Right.
I got a friend that left New York when me and him was 18. He became a welder. He gets paid $47 an hour whether he works or not. So if it's raining and he can't weld, because he welds bridges, if he can't weld, he still gets paid $47 an hour. So, and he didn't even have a high school diploma. He got his high school diploma while he was getting his welding certificate. So there's other avenues. Like give these young men other avenues except for what society tells them.
Right.
Because society's already beating them up.
Right.
The same way they're beating us up. The society's already telling them you're gonna fail.
Yeah.
Give them some other avenues.
Yeah. I definitely feel like even with young men, I feel like some young men, like especially the ones who don't have father figures in the home, I feel like some of them do struggle with like their identity. And because sometimes if you a young man and if you in a house full of just women and you don't really have no male example around you, you not only don't have anything to go off of, but even like career wise too. It's the same thing where I told you someone who was from down south came up here and they're like, I'm so amazed of the positions that black people have, that black people are paramedics and all these things, right? And I'm like, I asked the woman, I'm like, well, I asked her, I'm like, well, what do they do where you're from? And she was just like, I don't know. They don't have jobs like that, right? So it's like, it's the same thing with that. If a young boy doesn't have any men around him to show him how to be a man or even like careers that men can be in, they almost subconsciously think that it doesn't exist. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And it's not like, this is just going off of like just not knowing, So I think, some of the young men that don't have father figures, they struggle with that because they can only go off of what they see sometimes, as an example. I think I want to talk about some other things too. I want to talk about like things that like men as they get older struggle with like mentally. I want to talk about women emasculating men. I feel like that affects men's mental health. Um, it doesn't feel good to be kicked while you're already down. So by talking to men in a way where it makes them feel less of a man knowing that they go through all these things trying to prove themselves. You know, I feel like that can definitely take a toll on men's mental health. Also, I feel like men, you know, of course, the things like men being scared to ask for help, men not taking care of their physical health. I think that's a big one. I think a lot of people sleep on the fact that when your physical health is not okay, your mental health is not okay. Like we talked about that on that the episode. Um, but it's like even like, you know, what we talked about before, like lack of sleep. You know, you got some men that, oh, I gotta be a provider, so I'm working 2 jobs and not realizing you're feeling depressed, you having all this anxiety because you feel the pressure of having to work so much. It says, what do you do when they feel like they're entitled, that they're supposed to take care of my mother?
So what you have to do,
I don't.
and I'm that's a good question, because there are a lot of young men, this next generation of men who feel entitled, like they feel like I'm supposed to be taken care of because I'm your child. That's not the case. Um, Sometimes you got to build a bridge for them.
I don't think they were saying it like that. I don't know how they're saying it. It says, what do you do when they feel like they're entitled, that they are supposed to take care of my mother?
Ah, okay. I had to throw on my glasses, y'all. Yeah, I'm
I mean,
52.
I don't know what exactly what you mean by entitlement, but if they feel like it's their responsibility, um,
Yeah, I need you to elaborate on that on
I
that
mean,
on that
I
that
know.
statement.
That the mother is supposed to take care of them.
Okay, that's what I thought. That's what I thought you were saying. Okay,
Okay.
so first of all, if the man in their life, whether it be their father or their father figure, has not taught them that there are certain times when hands down, I will not hold this back. A man got to stand on his own. Um, your parents are not supposed to take care of you past 18, 19, 20, 21. Once you get on your feet, and when I say on your feet, I don't mean financially on your feet. I don't even mean like you got your own apartment, your own house. When you turn 18, it's time to stand on your own too. Now, if your parents have the ability to still keep you at home, it's a beautiful thing. For one, it's something that doesn't happen in our community enough. And Bridget, you were just talking about this earlier. The first thing we say is 18, you got to get out. If your parents have a position where you can still live at home, don't take advantage of that. You need to take a moment and say, you know what? I have this platform and I can springboard off of this platform into a better future. But don't let that platform become your bed, because the longer you try to lay in that bed, the lazier you're gonna get. Your parents are providing you with a platform. They're providing you with a platform that most young black men have not had. You know what I'm saying? Like, go ahead.
I'm not saying this in a harsh way, but this is just something that I feel like I have realized in general with entitlement. I feel like whenever a person um is feeling entitled, when it comes to specifically a person, I feel like it's usually that person enabling their entitlement. So,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and to say like, okay, if it's the mother, it's nothing wrong with helping your child past 18, right? But it can't be to the point where it's like you're not allowing them to, I don't want to say drown in a sense, you know what I'm saying? Because it's like even with me, it's been times that someone around me, like maybe my oldest niece or something, needed help. And okay, the first, oh, let me help them, let me help her. But then it'd be times that I'd be like, she's gonna have to learn this for herself. Why? Because I'm not always gonna be here to help her, but she also is gonna have to learn to handle this on her own, and to know that you can't always expect me to do it. So I feel like if someone is enabling someone where it's like you want to be a savior to someone every single time that they're going through something, then it's going to turn into entitlement, especially if they're not getting their way, or if they going through it in life somehow. It's like they got this entitlement, like, instead of, oh, I appreciate you helping me, it's you're supposed to help me, and I think, and I feel like enabling, that comes from a whole different form of trauma, because I feel, and sometimes with the mother and the child, sometimes it's like the mother subconsciously enables some of their children off of their own personal trauma, and then, believe it or not, it somehow affects the other siblings too in different ways.
Yeah.
So I feel like if someone feels entitled, the person has to stop enabling it. And I feel like people should be like that when it comes to anything. It's okay to help, but don't be a yes man and say yes to every single situation, because that's how a person becomes entitled. You have to tell people no for them to understand that I don't have to do this. I'll do it when it's okay for me, when I'm able to do it, but it should never be expected. And anything I do, and in that case, they're more grateful for it, instead of, oh, they're gonna do it because they never tell me no. You know what I'm saying? That's where I feel like entitlement comes from.
Like, I remember when I was 19, found out that my daughter's mom was pregnant. Couldn't tell. I wouldn't tell my parents, because I felt like my dad especially would be like, you're just failing all over again, and now you're about to fail a child.
Yeah.
So I didn't tell him. What I told him was, I decided to leave New York. I went to Job Corps. I had planned. When he dropped me off at the airport, he was at his wit's end. Like, he had already tried. He had already, in his mind, I tried. Every time I tried, you fail. Everybody else's parents are walking them into the airport to go ahead and get on the plane to start their future. My father took my bags out, tough love, took my bags out the trunk. He put that on the sidewalk, and he said, this is your last chance. You don't have nowhere to come back to. And every time I tried to fail from that point forward, that's the only thing I heard was, you don't have anything to go back to. Like, you can fail, but you could fail and be homeless. You can fail, or you can fail and be starving. So your only choice now is to succeed. But that's somebody who's at their wit's end. My dad did everything to try to push me in the right direction, and I just wouldn't go.
Yeah.
So to the mother who asked the question, my first question on that is, where's his dad at in that situation? Black men have wronged their children, especially these young men. We've wronged the hell out of them in a lot of cases, because we were not getting along with the mother of our child. So as opposed to saying, you know what, let's co-parent, let's find a way to be here for the child, we do this the whole time, and eventually the guy walks away.
Yeah.
So if the father's not in the son's life, or if the father's not guiding that son properly, my next thing would be, where are the other male figures that can be available for him? I know what I went through, and I don't want any other young male to go through what I went through. It took my daughter, it took me having a child to say, you need to straighten your life up. Not everybody's gonna have that same mentality. Some young men, you can give them 15 kids, and they still gonna be the same knucklehead doing the same things because somebody keeps bailing them out.
Yeah.
Sometimes you gotta stop bailing them out. Like, make sure that you're there for your kids. And I'm not talking about up until they're 18, but even after 18, make sure you're there for them. But there's got to be a point where you stop bailing them out.
Yeah.
And if they want to hit that wall, you got to let them hit that wall hard. Um, his dad kicked him out and is abusive to me. All right, different situation. Um, First of all, I'm sorry that you had to deal with the abuse of any man. Um, wow.
Um, I'm not sure if she's saying like the son is abusive or the father is abusive.
Um, I think he said his dad kicked him out and is abusive to me. So I'm thinking it's the father that's abusive.
Okay.
Um,
Um, I mean, if that's the case, that's definitely, something I wanted to eventually talk about towards the end, is like what we can do. But in that case, I would definitely say like, if a young man doesn't have a father figure in his life or his father somewhat has thrown his hands up when it comes to his own child, okay, both. Um,
mm,
I
mm.
feel like at that point, I feel like the young boy needs mentors. And this is again why I do feel like men and women should have platonic, not platonic. I feel like they should have like, I think I'm saying it right, platonic friendships.
Yeah,
Um, just for the fact that it's like if the father threw his hands up, you have a male friend that can step in, possibly. And again, if and this is why I feel like, with the whole village, we talked about villages and stuff, but that's why there always was a such thing as a godfather and a godmother. Why? Because these are simply friends who would act as parents to my child if anything was to happen to me or go wrong in my child's life. So these are people that you should pick out from birth because number one, when a child has always had a godfather or a godmother, right? And when they grow into those teenage years or those their years where they like becoming 18 and stuff, it's not like someone new. Oh, mom's friend, new friend just coming in my life trying to tell me what to do because at that point they're not gonna listen to somebody new. At that point in their mind, they think that they grown and they're not gonna value no other random adult's opinion on things. But it's like if it was a godfather that's always been in his life, that's someone that can check him. He's gonna know he can't play with the Godfather because it is definitely gonna be a different type of relationship than what he has with his father. Because when it's godparents, sometimes a child is more vulnerable with their godparents. They're more likely to tell their godparents stuff that they would not tell their parents because they know like, okay, this is between us. Um, so I don't know. I feel like mentors, godparents. I feel like, especially when you have young boys and especially black boys, I'm gonna say that. I feel like it's very important, even if your child's father is in your son's life, right? Say y'all could be married, right? But by the time your son is 13 years old, what if the son's father passed away? Now he does not have a male figure in his life. That's why he should have had multiple male figures from the time that he was born. So I feel like we need to normalize having godfathers again and godmothers, and making sure that you have other figures and try, and I know it's hard because people do have fallen outs with some of their friendships, right? But I feel like if you make someone a godparent, it's understood like whatever's between us is between us, but I need you to be there for my child, whether we going through it or not. And just so that your child has a village if you was to be gone, you know
yeah,
that's who your child fall back on. That's who your child also respects, almost like that second mother and father figure. um but I just wanted to talk about a few of the other things, and then I want to talk about what we can do to help with men's mental health. But some of the other things I wanted to talk about that can affect men's mental health, especially at like in adulthood, is women keeping men away from their children. I said it before. I don't agree with a woman keeping a man from his children, even if he's not providing. I'm not justifying or saying that it's right that a man is not financially taking care of his obligations as a father, but I also don't feel like that's a reason to not allow a man and his children to have a relationship. um I don't feel like as a mother that's your right to take that away from a man, because that's just as much as his child as it is yours. Unless a man is a danger to that child, I don't feel like no woman has the right to take that away from a man. And I think that is something that I see far too often, when men are going through those legal battles of either trying to fight for custody, or now you're put on child support, and it's taking almost your whole paycheck, to pay your bills, and then you also have to get a lawyer and stuff. That plays a huge part on men's mental health, you know. um and I feel like anybody, when children are involved, like if it's your child and you build a bond with this child, and imagine like that child being taken from you, and the child, even if it's at young ages or whatever age, you know, at that moment, if you are a good father and you really love and care about your kids, every single second, every single day is gonna hurt you more and more that you're not around your kids, or you can't talk to your kids. You're gonna feel like every day I'm missing a memory, I'm missing a piece of them, you know. And I feel like that really plays a big role on men's mental health in adulthood, if they can't see their kids. Because a lot of times, just like you said, Don, like you go through things, right? Like you lost your brother at a young age, but it's like sometimes we find our purpose in our children, so
Yeah.
your kids is a lot of the reason why some adults live, they continue to live, So if someone's not seeing their kids, that might be a reason why I don't need to be here anymore. I can't even see
Right.
my kids. I'm in debt because I had to get a lawyer, or they taking my whole paycheck for child support, and I can't even pay my bills. At that point, they contemplating suicide. Um, so I feel like that is like something that's very serious when it comes to men's mental health, because just like a woman, um, a lot of people who are parents, their children is their reason to keep going, and if they don't have that reason there, it will affect them.
So I want to take a moment to say this. Sunday's Father's Day, and I do want to shout out the fathers that stayed even though they were being pushed away, who pushed their way back in when they were being pushed away. The fathers who stepped up to be a father to a child who wasn't their own. I do want to wish all of the fathers a happy Father's Day on that. We're talking about men's mental health, and there's something that men has had to deal with for a very long time, and sometimes rightfully so, but still, it's a negative for your child. Father's Day will roll around, and women will be. I'm not beating up on women, but the fact is a fact. Oh, I'm the mother and the father. You think you're doing your child a great service by saying that, but what you're telling your son, if your child is your son, and you're saying I'm the mother and the father, I'm everything to him. What you're saying to your son is you ain't shit, because you're speaking to his gender. You're telling him I am the end all be all, which means if I'm the mother, if I'm the woman, and I'm the end all be all, then I'm telling you, as you're growing up, I'm sowing a seed of you ain't shit. You're never gonna be shit. Your father wasn't shit. Like instead of telling him, or instead of building a relationship for the child. And I'm not talking about dealing with abuse or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes you got to step back and step away. But there are men that you can sit there and show that young man, I'm your mother. This may just be your father figure. We don't have a relationship. I'm not married to them. That's my friend. But they're going to show you what a man should look like. But telling a young man from the time he's 5 years old all the way growing up that I'm the mother and the father, you're telling that young man that unless you are me, you ain't shit.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And luckily for me, you know what I'm saying, I didn't have that situation. My children's mothers, my children's mothers have always put me in a high esteem. At least two of the three has always put me in a high esteem. My daughter looks at me as her first hero, but that's because her mother put me in that position. Her mother didn't say, your dad's not here living with us, so he ain't shit. She put her in a high esteem. My sons, my oldest son at least, me and my youngest son, you know what I'm saying, even though we're not beefing, but he harbors some resentment because I wasn't living in the house. But my oldest son knows that dad has always had your back. But we can't, when we are sitting there, and even for our daughters, when we're sitting there and we are downplaying their biological male figure in their life, when we're sitting there and then we're intentionally downplaying that young lady is now looking at all men going, if my dad can hurt me, if my dad ain't shit, you definitely ain't shit. And that's every man that comes in their life.
Yeah.
You're telling young men, if my dad wasn't shit, I'm the fruit of his loins. That means I ain't shit either.
Yeah.
So while you think you tearing down just that man that y'all broke up, y'all had a tumultuous relationship, y'all split up, while you sitting there saying, and you think you tearing him down, you're tearing your children down at the same time. You're laying the foundation for them to either fuck up or be with a bunch of fuck ups.
Yeah. So the other things I did want to briefly talk about, and then I want to like talk about the things to help with men's mental health. Um, is the untreated mental health conditions, which we talked about this when we had Johnny on the show. Um, I feel like, you have some people that do have real mental health conditions. Just like we talked about, like, people's brain chemistry when it comes to substance abuse. Just like we talked about, like, some people can take one sip of alcohol and they the drunkest person that you ever met. You got some people that can drink a whole fifth of alcohol and they just normal, right? So everybody's body reacts to everything different. So I feel like some people, if they're struggling with certain mental health conditions like anxiety, depression, you got some people that can find coping skills to get through it without medication, but you also have people with some diagnosed mental health conditions that might require them to be on certain type of medications just to function normally, to be able to deal with what they're dealing with mentally. So I feel like that is a big thing when it comes to mental health, because it's like, if you're diagnosed with something but you're not taking your medication and it's causing you to have episodes, and it's causing you to act out of character and stuff, then you're like, you might be pushing your family or people away from you based on your episodes and stuff like that. That is, that can make your mental health worse, because then you got some
Yeah.
people feel like they don't want to deal with you, because you're not taking your mental health seriously, you know. Some other things is men who fear of judgment for either showing emotion, being vulnerable, or even their sexuality. Even though I don't want to get deep into that, but there are some men that I feel like, you know, they hide their true sexuality based on society. And I feel like it's why some men do struggle with mental health, because they're battling with, you know, who they truly are, and feeling like it's not normal to society, or they won't be accepted or supported by their family, and what people are going to think about them, you know. The
So
other thing,
I want to touch base. I didn't mean to cut you off, sis.
like,
I want to touch base first on the thing that we talked to Johnny about, which was the substance abuse.
mm-hmm.
It's if you grown, you grown, and you need to smoke your blunt just to relax. That's fine, or you need to drink you a drink to relax. But when you find that being your escape, if you find yourself having to be at the bottom of the bag of weed or at the bottom of the bottle just to find some type of mental stability, you need to seek help. Honestly, um, you really need to find someone who can, one, diagnose what you're going through, either help you get through it, either just in conversations or if it requires medication. But it's I've seen dudes who will buy an ounce of weed and they're not happy until they've smoked it all, whether it be smoke it all in one day or 2 days, but that's their happiness. That's not natural. It's not normal. Um, I've seen dudes who can buy a gallon of liquor and they're not at their happy place until they're taking that last sip of that liquor. That's not natural and it's not normal.
Yeah.
If you have those situations, if you're using alcohol as a means of self-medicating through your struggles, you need to seek professional help. You need to sit down with a therapist, a licensed therapist. I'm not talking about uh, 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 what do you call them? Emotional speakers or whatever. I'm talking about a licensed therapist, somebody who can actually see you and what you're going through and give you some positive direction to where you need to go, whether it be if it's a psychologist and he goes, hey, I can't administer medication, but you need to see a psychiatrist because you're going to require medication to get out of this. You touched base on it a little while ago about guys, you know, committing suicide. Either it's because they lost the love of their life and or they just got to the point where they didn't know how to deal with something. Before you get to that point, there are some warning signs that you need to look at for you. And when you see those warning signs, don't ignore them. Don't sit there and go, oh, I thought about it, but I didn't do it, because eventually that thought becomes an action. A really good friend of mine, and I'm gonna try to speak on him without dropping a tear. Really good friend of mine loved his woman, but he didn't want to. He wasn't ready for marriage, and she pushed him into marriage. She actually gave him an ultimatum and told him either marry me or we're over. And he married her.
Mm.
But because he wasn't mentally ready for marriage, he didn't give his marriage the all that he should have. She's got fed up and asked for a divorce. Now, before they got married, in his mind, she was still his world, even though he wasn't ready for the marriage. He wasn't ready to say the vows because he knew once he said the vows, he had to hold true to them. They end up getting separated, and she, instead of having the sheriff bring the divorce papers to his house and serve him, she
Mm-hmm.
wanted to embarrass him. So she sent him to his job.
Wow.
And when he had to get called downstairs to the front desk to receive these papers, and it's a uniformed sheriff that's dropping him off, it degraded him to a point that he couldn't come back from.
Yeah.
And he ended up that night, he knocked on her window. And when she came to the window, he shot her and tried to kill her, and then he killed himself.
Mm.
Now, I'm glad about the fact that she didn't die. But once he shot her, he felt like, I have to leave now. Because I don't know what was in his mind at this point. This is speculation, but anytime a man shoots somebody and is willing to turn the gun on himself, he feels so bad about what he just did. He felt like that was his only out. Now, this was a for all intentional purposes, a good dude. He just was not ready to say those vows, because for good men, those vows mean something. You know, when you say in front of God and man that I'm going to love, honor, cherish, take care of, be the end all be all, to some men that's important.
Yeah.
So when he did those things, and now she's like, but you're not living up to what I feel like a husband should be. And now her mind is, let me embarrass him. Let me make sure he regrets not being the man that I thought he should be.
Yeah.
And it ended tragically. So
I mean, I definitely,
um
like when we talked about it before, like even like loss of a relationship. I think that is one of the biggest things that I feel like men struggle with when it comes to their mental health. I mean, I've even seen men who have got married and it's like their first marriage didn't work out, and then it changed the way they view relationships and marriage, period.
mhm.
The point where they're like, I will never get married again. So that just show you the impact, because it's like, just because the relationship was bad with that person doesn't mean that that's how every relationship is going to play out. So the fact that, like,
Facts.
you let someone take something that might have been meaningful to you, like, I feel like as a man, if it's something that, oh, I always wanted to get married, I always wanted this, and then you let one bad relationship or one bad marriage change your views of marriage now, to the point where it's like you feel like, even if you love a woman, the next woman is like the best person you ever met, but it's like, I'm not going to give you that because off of how someone else hurt me from a previous marriage. um this is why I also, like, I feel like it affects men's mental health. And I feel like when you go through things like that, I feel like you can't be scared to ask for help, support, go to therapy. And we saying all of these things, but it's like, sometimes, like, which I'm trying to get to, I want to talk about prevention, because
Mhm.
the key to mental health, right, is, and the key to any disease, to anything, right? A lot of times with us people, period, I'm gonna just make it a general thing. A lot of us want to focus on woulda, coulda, shoulda after the fact, but never focus on what we can do to prevent something like this from happening. And that comes from anything, even with
Yeah.
our lifestyles, our eating habits. It's like, oh, I'm a pre-diabetic, but what were you trying to do to prevent yourself from getting to that point? So I feel like with mental health, just like anything else, every people should focus on prevention. You know, if you take your mental health seriously, when you have a bad breakup, you possibly can handle it a little bit better than if you are neglecting your mental health. And now it's like murder suicide. I'm gonna kill her, I'm gonna kill the kids, and I'm gonna kill myself, you know. So I feel
Mhm.
like the biggest thing to mental health is to try to keep your mental health in a good place. I just want to like list the things real quick, Don, and then I want to straight go into like the prevention. So
Okay.
last things that I want to list is encounters with the police and specifically black men. That plays a part on men's mental health.
Mhm.
It causes PTSD and in so many different ways. Um, Also, men being scared to ask for help, that affects their mental health. Scared to be vulnerable. Um, and also just like being taught that you shouldn't show fear, like you're not scared. Men can be scared of things just like a woman, and it's like, so I think that's a big one. And yeah, so those are the things. So I want to talk about like prevention, and how we can help our men's mental health. Okay. So I just want to state like three things with me that I think are like big things, and then Don, me and you both can talk about like ways you believe that can help people, especially men, when it comes to their mental health. So my big things that I always go by is like body, mind, and spirit. And I feel like
Mhm.
if you are not making sure that every single one of those things are you're taking care, you're feeding them correctly, I feel like one is gonna affect the other. So if you're not taking care of your body, meaning you're not staying hydrated, you're not getting sleep, you're not working out, eventually those things is gonna start to affect your mind. You know, your mind, people's spirit needs to be fed based off of like, you know um just like part of your purpose. um
Mhm.
I feel like your mind is like basically your skills, your therapy, your self-awareness. If your mental is not strong, um just like you said, Don, if you put in a situation where it's like, oh, I'm ready to retaliate, some people won't think logically, if you're
Right.
not taking care of your mind, or if your mind is not in a good place. Um so I truly believe in body, mind, and spirit. And I just want to say one more thing before we go into all the things that we can do to help like with prevention. It was a point in time in my life that I focused on all three: body, mind, and spirit. I was working out every single day. I was like mentally in a really good place because of the fact that I was taking care of my body, and I also was feeding my spirit. I was in my Bible. I was praying. I was being celibate. I was not using any substances at all, no alcohol, no nothing. And I was in the best place of my life. I never felt so good, so pure in my life. So the reason why I always say that, not to say that people can't ever have fun, but the one of the best times that I ever felt in my life, like I'm talking about fully, is when I was feeding all three of those things: body, mind, and your spirit. And I truly don't believe, if you're not feeding all three of those things at the same time, it's gonna be, it's gonna be off balance. Something is gonna be off balance. So Don, I just want both of us to talk about ways and things that can help men with their mental health.
So what you just said was actually very huge. Um, some guys are afraid of their own self, so they don't want to spend time by themselves. They always have to have somebody around. Um, Sometimes you got to get in your own quiet place and you got to self reflect, look at life as in the big picture. Um, One thing that I've done since my first marriage into my second marriage was not being afraid of my quiet place.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I need to sit and reflect on what I'm doing, what my next moves are going to be, and how I can help the person that I'm with. So even when you're in a relationship, find your quiet place. Find that place that you can reflect on who you are. That's your mind. That's your mental. That's Don't beat yourself up. Take time to say, you know what? This is what I did today. How can I do something different tomorrow that makes it better? How can I move forward? Um, your body. There was a time when I wouldn't go to see a doctor. I didn't really start seeing a doctor heavy until I was probably in my late 30s, early 40s. Because when you get to those moments in your life, you start to look at your own mortality, and unless you're ready to go, you start to try to find ways not to go. So I'm in the doctor's office just for my. I know most people say annual physical. I'm every 6 months. I'm going. Hey, just check me out. I need you to run tests. I need you to run. I need to know if I'm pre-diabetic. I need to know if you got any cancer cells in my blood. I need you to check me out because I got a reason to live.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So that's me taking care of my body. And that's why I said what you said was real powerful. Because guys don't think about these things.
Yeah.
Until it's too late.
Right.
They don't start thinking about their mortality until they're staring it in the eyes.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
And it really,
Go ahead.
those things really can affect your mental health, and I'll say even for myself, I feel like, um, being a business owner, and it's like a lot of times you put your health on the back burner, because you're trying to take care of everybody else, so even speaking for myself, even though I'm a woman, but this is just the example of why, is because neglecting my physical health, I'm sorry, started to affect my mental health, because not only am I trying to juggle a business, but it's like now I'm having all these health problems. So every time I blink, I have to go to the doctor. Every time I blink, I have to get blood work. Every time I blink, I have to go get an ultrasound, a biopsy, surgery. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like you have to take care of your physical health, because if not, like I said, having to do all those things outside of working, because working in this economy is already stressful, so now add on the fact that you got to go to all these doctor's appointments, and I'm on all of these medications, you know what I'm saying? So I feel like to prevent, like a domino effect when it comes to um that, is to take care of your physical health. And I feel like men in general just don't go to the doctors like they should. They don't get checkups, they don't get their blood work done. And as you get older, your body starts to change, even for men,
Yeah.
so you could be deficient in something, and not understanding like why your hair is falling out, or why you feel so fatigued, even if you are getting enough sleep, a lot of time it is reasons behind that, so like you said, Don, at the bare minimum, if you go and do your annuals, okay, I got my blood work done at least once a year, you know, okay, you're a little deficient in that. Is that, or have you been tired? Yeah, I've been extremely tired. Okay, well, let's give you vitamin D or whatever it is that you are deficient in, or they can give you a plan of how, whatever it is that you're dealing with health wise, to get you back healthy. Um, the one thing I wanted to talk about was allowing men to be more than just banks, and allowing them to live. Um, One of the things too I forgot to mention was, sometimes men feel like they're not worthy based on what a woman defines as successful. Um, and I feel like that's something that, like, it's a societal pressure, but I feel like a man can be shamed nowadays, especially with social media and stuff, right? Based on what type of job he has. So like if a man is like, "Oh, I work at McDonald's," or "I work here," it's a bit of shame that comes with it. And it's like, it shouldn't be shame because you're working. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, you could not be doing anything, but you have a job, your bills are paid, and that's all that matters. But I think that societal pressure of like what a woman deems as successful. Oh, you have to make six figures. Oh, you work at McDonald's, I would never, and I don't think that's right, but I feel like that is something else that affects men's mental health. um me being a hairstylist, I'll have like people in general come in like, oh, I had to pick up a side gig, I had to do this, I do DoorDash on the side, and it's like, you see it comes with a little bit of like shame, and I'm like, you getting it, like, you know what I'm saying, like,
Right.
you working,
Right.
like, at the end of the day, like, it doesn't matter what it looked like to nobody else, because again, with social media and all those other things, like, that's a facade. It's a lot of famous social media people that actually do DoorDash and stuff. Because when they're not getting those Instagram checks or whatever the case may be, the bills and all those things still need to get paid, So I don't think no one should ever be shamed for working, period. It doesn't matter if they doing DoorDash. I don't, you shouldn't try to downplay it. But again, I think that's also holding women and other people accountable for stop trying to shame people for working, even if it's not your idea, but I don't think you should ever I don't ever think you should try to belittle or shame someone's wherever they're currently wherever they're working at. You know what I'm saying? Because God works in mysterious ways, and it's like God will humble people. I don't care if you making $100,000 today. Anything can happen to you tomorrow where you're not working that job no more. And then now you're like hoping people don't judge you based off of your income. So that's another thing. And when I say allow men to be more than just banks and allow them to live, is allowing men to be more than what society tries to tell them, even when it comes to like gender, things. So like one example is like, when some young boys, right, growing up, if they caught playing with Barbie dolls with their sisters, like some parents project, oh, you're not playing with Barbie dolls because you ain't gonna be gay, or you're not playing with a kitchen set because you're a boy. In reality, it's like a young boy has a mind, because just like a Barbie doll, there's action figures. So men is gonna play, young boys are gonna play, like those little games with the Barbie dolls and dolls and stuff, and even like a kitchen set. Men can have a passion for cooking. Men can have a passion for baking. They're very good chefs. And honestly, some of those things are very like mentally stimulating. So I think like we as women and even other men should normalize men doing things that what society wouldn't deem as normal for men. Like, it's okay if a man wants to be a painter or he wants to get into gardening, things that's like outside of, oh, that's not manly.
Mm-hmm.
Just allowing men to have hobbies that make them feel good, because a lot of times those hobbies be their true purpose, and their passions.
Like, you want to hear a crazy thing about that? Men were always told, little boys were always told, women cook, men go out and they use their hands. But up until probably the last 30 years, most chefs were men.
Mm-hmm.
So where did these chefs come from that if they were always told as kids, women do the cooking, men
Exactly.
and I might be, it might be a little further than that, than 30 years, but men were always chefs. It wasn't until probably 30, 40 years ago that you didn't see a woman chef. So
Yeah.
somebody somewhere told this young man, you're good at cooking, go cook.
Right.
So somebody had enough wherewithal to say, you know what, if that's what you like to do, be the best at it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Don't just go cook for yourself. If you're gonna cook, be the best cook you could ever be. Be a chef.
Mm-hmm.
So and there's a lot of successful chefs that, like, I watch them on the Food Network and stuff like that, and I'm like, yo, like, these dudes are doing it and they're making a incredible living from it.
Yeah.
So don't sit there and if your son is interested in cooking, don't let that be the thing that you shame him for,
Yeah.
because he might grow up to be a well-known chef.
I mean, I have a lot of male clients that are chefs, and I can definitely say the men outweigh the women when it comes to personally who I know. I know a few women, that are chefs, but majority of them are men, So
Mm-hmm.
I've seen that though. I've seen that online where people act like their sons can't play with a little kitchenette, you know, um, like, oh no, don't play with that. That's what girls do. But it's like and a lot of people find joy in baking or cooking, it's very peaceful to some people. Um Other things, I feel like we have to redefine masculinity. So I feel like men also need to set boundaries. Even with feeling like, oh, I need to help my mom, I need to help my sister. I don't feel like that pressure should be put on men to take care of their entire families for the rest of their life. No. I don't feel like it ever should be put on a young boy at all. And even when you become a man and you have your own family, I don't feel like that should be your responsibility either. Because then it's going to turn into like their financial burdens is your financial burdens, and that's going to put a lot of stress and make you feel depressed and anxiety on you. So it's like, set boundaries. If you can help your family, okay, cool, but it's also not your responsibility to take that on. So set boundaries even with people who try to take advantage of your kindness. Ask for help. Go to therapy. I would definitely say like mentorship. um and find community. I think that's a big thing for men. And some men, like, they might outgrow their childhood friends and stuff like that, right? But I feel like it's a lot of places men can find community. You can go to the gym, you can join a run club, you can find community in church. Even if it's some chill stuff, I think one of the biggest things for men is like cigar lounges, because I think that's
Mm-hmm.
so I even suggest that to people sometimes. It's like, go to a cigar lounge, because I feel like that's where real men are at, and you can network and you can talk about life and you can ask for advice. And to me, it's a community in that. And you're also relaxing doing stuff that you like to do. And it's like, if it's anything outside of that, whatever your hobbies are, right? Find community in those things. Don, you want to say any other things that you personally know?
So definitely the cigar lounge. Find successful men to position yourself around.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to be cautious about when I say the word successful. I don't mean successful as somebody who happens to be a millionaire. Yeah, if you got one of those in your circle, by all means, soak up all you can. But successful is somebody who made it through life. If it's somebody older, I know a lot of older dudes who have retired from the police department. Um, and I sit down and just glean to what they've been through and where they are now. And I hear there's some jewels in those lessons. Nisha said gun range. The gun range is an amazing place. And I know not everybody is gonna feel me when I say this, but that is for one, it's a stress relief. But for two, you're also around people who have similar interests.
Yeah.
And they can teach you things. I was going in the gun range, and I ran into this white guy. We was in line waiting, and we are from two totally different walks of life, totally different. But we had a conversation, and I got so many jewels from the conversation with him.
Mm-hmm.
You never know where you're going to get your jewels, but get in a place that meets your interests, and I promise you'll find other guys that meet those same interests. I never knew I wanted to be a firearms instructor.
Mm-hmm.
But I got around somebody who had the same love of firearms that I did, and they happened to be a firearms instructor.
Yeah.
And the first thing I thought to myself was, I can do that. And luckily for me, he wasn't a gatekeeper.
Yeah.
He wasn't sitting there going, "Well, I've already did it. I'm not telling you anything." I got around somebody who was willing to share that knowledge with me, and he still does till this day. Every day, we're texting each other 3 or 4 times a day. But what I've got from him was I had a love for something, and he's helping me turn that love into a financial avenue. So go to the cigar lounge, um, sit there and hang out with the guys. You may end up opening your own cigar lounge because you just found that you got a love for cigars now,
Yeah.
and now you got a new avenue of income. Um, but if you sit around and do things stat quo, the things that you've always done, that has never taken you anywhere, and you don't put yourself in any kind of different environments, you're doing yourself a disservice.
Yeah. Um, I know, like, I've talked about it on here before. I've always struggled with anxiety since I was young. I've done therapy a few times. Um, and of course, like, we say therapy, but we know a lot of men, especially black men, don't really feel comfortable going to therapy. Because like we talked about before, a lot of them don't feel like therapists can relate to them, so they're not going to understand them, which is absolutely not the case. But I think other things, even outside of therapy, is like a life coach. I had a life coach one time, and honestly, at that time, I had a therapist too. But I feel like the life coach actually did more for me than my actual therapist. Um, and she actually cared. She actually like helped me with my overall health. But also she taught me things like breathing exercises, which is very slept on. So I feel like with men, if you're a little hesitant to go into therapy, which I feel like you should never knock anything until you try it. But if you want to start with something, little things you can do to help with your mental health is definitely like maybe getting a life coach, starting off with that. If you're not okay with that, I would say do breathing exercises. If you go on YouTube and look up like breathing exercises for anxiety or whatever the case may be, they'll teach you breathing methods to like holding your breath for a certain amount of time and then releasing it. And believe it or not, I promise you, this life coach gave me this. At the time, it was a CD of breathing exercises. I was having like bad anxiety because when you have anxiety, you can't sleep, most people. Um, so it was like I wasn't sleeping at all because you're consistently having like thoughts in your mind. It's like you can't stop thinking. And so she gave me this breathing exercise CD, and I did it. And believe it or not, and it had like nature sounds on it, but believe it or not, it was like all the thoughts that were just running through my mind were gone by doing this breathing exercise. And then next thing you know, while I'm doing a breathing exercise, and I'm doing this at home, I was knocked out, and even the following day, I didn't necessarily have like just consistent thoughts running through my mind. So even something as small as that within your home, even 5 minutes, go on YouTube and find a breathing exercise, how much that can help. And these are all like, coping skills to help deal with like anxiety and things like that.
All right, so I know that the hour is getting late, but
I want to talk about one more thing though.
come on.
I want to talk about gratitude. I feel like
Mm.
too much, and even me personally, this is something feel like people do in general. I feel like people always are hyper focused on all the bad things that are in their life, but ever do they sit back and have gratitude and are grateful for the things that are going well in our life or the things that they have accomplished? So I feel like instead of spending your life every single day focusing on all the bad. Just sit back and say at least 3 things that you're grateful for, you're proud of yourself for. Just even talking to yourself more kindly, I feel like can change your mental health. So I feel like practicing gratitude is like very important. Because I don't think people realize how much they focus on the fact that they're only thinking about all the bad parts of their life and never sitting there like, wait, but I do have good experiences. You know what I'm saying?
So that's actually what I wanted. I wanted you to talk to the guys. So
Okay.
you did it. So because normally we exit the show and I say something to the crowd. I say something, but I wanted you to talk to the guys. I wanted and you just did exactly what I wanted.
Yeah.
Say whatever you want to guys out there just to let them know they okay.
I just want to say, it's okay to cry. It's okay to rest. It's okay to need help. It's okay to struggle. I mean, in today's society, if you're not diagnosed with a disability, everyone is capable, So I don't feel like men should have all of the weight on their back. It's not fair. I feel like a woman who truly loves you is going to look at you as a partnership and they're going to add value into your life. They're not just going to want to watch you struggle. You're more than just your career. You're more than just being strong for everybody. You're your own individual person. And it's okay to not be okay. And I feel like when you're not okay, whoever you do feel safe with, I feel like don't feel scared and don't feel like a burden when you do need to express something to them, regardless of what you were taught. It's a lot of things that I feel like we were taught in childhood that we had to unlearn, and it's a lot of things that you might not have been given in childhood, but you could say like you as a father, like, oh, I'm gonna do different as a dad. So you also have to remember those things, like, oh, man up, men don't cry. You have to unlearn some of those things too and make sure that you're not still applying them to yourself or even like instilling that into your son, and also the last thing I want to say, I want to hold other men accountable and I also want to hold women accountable of stop putting the pressure on men to be everything, stop 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 not giving men a space to be themselves. Yeah, I don't, that's all I can really think of, but I want to hold women accountable too, because, and I'm never going to sit here and try to blame women for men's mental health, and the only other thing I do want to say, you're actually stronger than you think for being vulnerable. I feel like you're actually more weaker for being scared to be vulnerable. That will make someone more weaker. But you're actually very, very strong to be vulnerable and be exactly who you are, even if it doesn't seem like, okay, I cried and I'll that to me is strength. That's real strength, yeah. And I'm gonna say my last little quote because I said it plenty of times. Sorry, I don't care.
It's your time.
It's the saying that I always heard: what good is a man if he's physically strong but mentally weak? So I feel like I love men, I love Black men, and I want us to take care of our mental health, our physical health, and also your spiritual, and that's all I have to say.
Cool. So I'm not ending the show. That was it. That was the show right there. That was it. See us next Wednesday. I think that's the last week of Men's Mental Health month, Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. Excuse me. That's it. Bridget took y'all out. We see y'all next Wednesday. Be easy, folks.
This is Love, Sex, and Society with Bridget and Don. Please like,